Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we're in the shed with Mr. Brett Sheppard. Brett, how are you this evening?
Good, mate. I'm very well.
Brett, it's a special night tonight because we're in the shed. We're going to talk about Unleashed, which is the boat sitting behind you. Brett, before we start, can you give us a little bit of history about yourself? Where did you come from?
Come from Hoon boats, obviously, for years ago. Followed the circuit boats a little bit, watching Brian and some of the other boys. Went to Dargle one year to watch circuit boat racing and said to me missus, I'm going to do it one day, and ended up buying a little boat called True Spirit from Wayne McMillan, I think his name was, and used that as a hoon boat for a few years and went drag racing and mucked around in that up in the river and up in the lake. And then Stewie Thomas and Mark Lewins helped me put a blown injected engine in and ended up circuit racing with it all.
Sounds like a very good starting point for coming into the sport. So what engine packages were you running back then?
480, it was a Merlin block with, I think there were 360 heads on it, 871 blower. I think we were only running like 15 or 18 pounds of boost in it. We were trying to get some laps under our belt. I think the first or the second season we ran 50 races, so it was just about getting seat time and keeping the boat going and getting better and better at driving the boat.
Jesus, back in those times, I bet you were flying doing that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
feeling every bump and everything, being in an open sort of cockpit boat, or no cockpits back in those days.
Yeah, I think the first run in that little Unleashed with an injected motor around 128. I think the second run out around 132. So Mark obviously sort of knew how to set them up, and sort of all went from there. The boat was reliable. I don't think we ever broke it for like 3 or 4 years.
Jesus, that goes to show how sort of reliable things were with yourself. So stepping forward to the nice machine that's sitting behind you, what's it been going from one boat to the other one?
Well, actually, the bigger boat I think is probably a better boat than a little boat. They're nicer to drive. You can probably put more power into them. They're easier to drive. I reckon they turn better than little boats do, and probably just a better package. You can literally just put some more horsepower into them and drive them a bit harder.
That'd be true with a cell behind it. But the history behind this boat, when did you actually purchase this boat, and was it always a cell boat?
No, so originally after we decided to get rid of the little Unleashed, the 18 footer, and by 21, Rob and Gary had the bottom sitting up there as just a white bottom, and Brett and me approached them and said, oh, you just put a deck on it, we'll take it as it is. And so I think Rob and Gary put the deck on it, may have put a few bits and pieces in, and me and Brett Nidry took it home and fitted it out over a couple of, maybe a year or so, and ended up putting the little Unleashed engine in it and took it circuit racing.
So starting from an open deck, how competitive was the boat?
The big one, originally it was pretty good. So straight up I had the 480 in it, straight out a little Unleashed. It went all right. We took it to Dargle and did pretty well first off the bat. I heard the engine, I think it broke a lifter, and at that point in time it had probably done maybe 150 races, that engine, or maybe a bit more even, and we decided to freshen the engine up and make it a bigger cuber, and ended up putting a 540 in it, which probably wasn't the best idea. We could have mucked around with propellers a bit more, but it made it a little bit undrivable having a big cubic engine with a little cuber in it where you could pretty well just pedal it flat out. And it probably took me a couple of years to get my head around it, and it wasn't until probably I put the cell in it that the boat really started showing some potential.
Potential, all right. This thing is a weapon these days, so you've got something sorted out. So going forward, seeing this boat was originally an open deck boat, what was the migration going over to the cell like?
Pretty good. There's a video on or somewhere on YouTube or whatever of me first driving it up at Windsor, and you know, I sort of took to it like a duck with water sort of thing. Yeah, I had no problem. Everything was fine. I didn't mind jumping in the sailboat at all. And actually, you can drive them a lot harder because you're obviously strapped in. And you can see now that some of the things that go on with the sailboats, if you're in an open boat, you would be thrown through the bloody air.
There's certainly been some good races with these sort of sailboats getting around. There's also been some negative races where, unfortunately, you've had an incident with Nathan Barry up at Raymond Terrace. Do you want to reminisce a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, it was just a bit of bad luck, really. I came into the corner maybe 50 metres in front of Nathan, and it broke the blower belt just on the corner, and I drifted through the corner and sort of stopped, sort of started to stop coming out the corner. And if you look at the footage, I've sort of drifted slightly in front of him, and he's turned the corner, and obviously his boat's banked where he can't really see where he's going. And next thing I'm just sitting there, next thing I see this boat come over the top of me. And I sort of thought, what the hell's that? But I sort of knew, and I thought, oh well. But yeah, it sort of broke the window, but the propeller ran up over the deck of the boat and done a bit of damage. But as per usual, Rob and Gary fixed it up, and you can't tell, so back to brand new again.
They're pretty good with what they do. I mean, their craft is always so strong, so reliable, as in the hull and everything like that. It goes to show, how good the Child's Play really are. Going back with what's going on behind you, the boat is sitting here without an engine in it. Unfortunately, there was a few things that happened at Melton. Do you want to tell us what happened at Melton from a driver's point of view?
Yeah. Oh well, I knew, like, we'd sort of turned around to go back and restart the race, and I'd noticed that Daryl Quinn was sitting at the end of the track, and as I drove up, I noticed he hadn't joined back up with us, and even when I drove back the other way, I thought, well, he's not there, I wonder where he is. And I thought, well, he can't be in the middle of the track, otherwise I wouldn't have the race on. And I noticed he'd been getting towed down the side of the track. At that point in time, I didn't think much of it, but as I got closer and started heading down, I thought, oh, actually he's moving a bit quicker than I thought. And there was a roller running down the edge of the track, but I'd seen it coming down, and I didn't really think much of it. I just thought, oh, as I get to it, I'll back off a little bit and I'll keep going. And obviously the next lap I came flying around and forgot all about that roller that had then, I think, mixed up a bit with the start boat roller. And I hit him, and well, I didn't even see them hit him, and it obviously bucked the boat out of the water, and it's come down pretty hard on the front corner of the boat, but it fractured the front of the boat, and it blew the gunnel off, and done a little bit of damage inside under the boat. But that's heading to Sydney Friday afternoon for Rob and Gary to hopefully give it a quick repair, and I'll swing back up the following weekend and pick it up. So, but yeah, nothing major for the boat. It was just a shame that it sort of put us out of the meeting.
Because structurally, when you look at the boat, if you didn't know something had happened, you'd want to put the boat back on the water and race straight away. But being truthful, it's probably the best thing for you just to go and get it repaired and make sure it is perfect for next time you're on the water.
Yeah, like we were nearly going to go and race again, and one of the boys had done a bit of glass work, said, oh, maybe you shouldn't do it, and everybody sort of swayed to the safety side and said, oh, just park it up. So we did. Even when I turned up Sunday morning, we were half keen to have another go, and I rang Gary up and sent him some pictures up of what had happened and said, well, what are your thoughts, Gary? And I was hoping he was going to say, yeah, no worries, just use it, but he said, I'd probably better off just parking it. It's probably going a little bit too quick to be, flying around with it, having a bit of damage on it. So anyway, it is what it is. But yeah, it heads up this weekend. They'll sort it out during the week, and I'll go and pick it up next weekend.
Going back to speed-wise, you are noted for being one of the quickest getting around the race courses, especially up at Windsor over the last couple of times. You've been up there and qualified very fast. Do you want to reminisce about some of those for us, please?
Yeah, the last couple of times we've been to Windsor, we've done reasonably well. On the hot laps thing that they've been putting up, we've come out on top a few times, which is good. Especially a couple of the times we've gone out unprepared because we haven't had the boat ready. So we're pretty happy with the results. The boat at the moment's flying. Oh, it's going quick, it's still flying. Windsor's a good track for us to race at. We normally have a good time up there. Just The hot laps thing's a good thing, but it's easy to get out there on your own and fly around. As soon as you get the other boats out there, it's a different story.
Well, there's definitely more blown boats getting around at the moment. There's currently 21 to 22 blown boats in the driver championship, so there's plenty of hot competition. Can you let us know, is there someone on the racetrack that you sort of admire and look towards?
Yeah, myself. No, I don't know. There's a few good drivers around at the moment. I mean, Tate Ramsey's going along well. I mean, Troy's back on the cards, so he's obviously he always comes and gives his best. Obviously, Chris Palmer's when he's going and he's always on the top of the tree sort of thing. He's probably one of the quickest boats going around when everything's going right with him. And obviously, there's a lot of other boats that are all up and comers. So yeah, everybody's sort of getting better and everybody's going a bit quicker. So yeah, everybody's after the top, to get on top.
What about up and coming drivers? Is there someone that you're looking at the moment?
Yeah, there's a few young blokes. I mean, obviously Tate's been in it for a few years now. He's going along all right. I noticed Connor Patterson at Melton drove pretty smooth and got round the track pretty quick, and I know they're not running big horsepower or anything in that boat, so his lap times are pretty good. Yeah, there's a couple of the other blokes that are going along all right as well.
Brett, you've been on the circuit for a while. You know how fast this boat is. Was there someone going back that actually you look up to and then has inspired you to continue on like this?
Yeah, originally when I first started doing it, I mean, Brian was obviously the man who, was winning everything. He had big winning streaks going, like 50 odd races straight he'd won, and Crossy was another one. I remember, talking with John a few times about how to drive the boats, and he told me some information I thought was a BS sort of thing, and never really took much notice of it. But later down the track, I started to think more and more about what he'd said, and sort of started using some of his techniques, and how John drove, and I sort of try to drive similar to what he does. I know I'm nowhere near as good as him, but definitely some of the stuff he taught me or told me sort of got me where I am now.
You can definitely see that he's had an influence over many people, not just yourself, but there's other people on the racetrack, such as Troy Marlin, as you mentioned just before. The driving style is very similar.
Yeah, I mean, Crossy and Troy have very similar driving style. I mean, Brian could do it, but probably not as good as them two. In reality, Crossy was the master at it, and probably Troy's the next best at it. But yeah, it's a bit of a technique they use, and when I've been using it, it's helped me go a long way. And yeah, at the moment, it's worked good for me.
Brett, when you got this boat home for the very first time, who helped you set it all up?
Yeah, look, went from Rob and Gary's. Obviously, they gave it to us as an open boat, and had some of the stuff was done in it. Can't remember, it's a long time back now. Then it actually went straight to Brett Nidry's, and Brett and me, I would come over on the weekends and we'd put them together. Even though he'd be there all day, he'd look back and go, oh, what do we do? And he'd really done nothing. But in saying that, Brett sort of set the boat up the way it was set up, and set it up as an open boat. And obviously down the track it ended up as a sailboat, but the original setup was done by me and Brett, and then Rob and Gary obviously put the new cell on it and made it a different boat, well, same boat but different setup again. But the original stuff, which is the cab gear and everything else, is all originally done. I think Rob and Gary would have done the cab gear, but the setup inside the boat was done by Brett Nidry.
Long time it's been in between drinks. What about when it was changed over to the sailboat?
Yeah, Rob and Gary did that, but the gearbox and everything still stayed in the same spot. I took it up to Rob and Gary, sort of said to them that I didn't want the cell that had, or we wanted a new cell, a better cell, and we'd seen a lot of the drag race boats with their cells on them, and sort of said that was a sort of line I wanted to go down with, something like that. So I went up with one weekend with Rob and Gary, and we sort of sat down and went through it and sort of they made a plug, and we sat it inside the boat, and over about a year, they finally fitted it all up, and that's the end result. It actually turned out beautiful, Rob and Gary's work once again.
It is very beautiful to look at when you sit back and everything like that. Engine packages. What sort of engine packages are you running in the boat?
So originally when the cell went in, it was a 540, a Big Chief engine in it, or look, I'm not sure now. It could have been a Big Chief, but anyway, I've got two engines. The 540, which is here, which is Glenn Wells's engine, which is a Big Chief, which that makes some serious horsepower, probably more than the one that we've got in it, which is the Keith Black. The Keith Black's a 526 cubic inch with a Whipple. It's got Dart 410 heads on it. We'd run anywhere from 30 pounds to 35 pounds of boost in it, depending on what the weather's doing. And the boat runs anywhere from 142 to 150 mile an hour, depends on the conditions and what sort of tune-up we put in it.
So it's obviously yourself doing the tune?
Yeah, we do it with me. Well, we've got a bit of data now from the years gone by of what to put in it, and Trevor Stanley from Stanley Racing Engines, he's been, unreal with me. He's sort of helped me along the way to sort of learn how to do a lot of it myself, so that I don't have to always ring him every night. But yeah, Trevor, originally the fella from America, Kopchek, did the tune up for it and set everything up, and then it ended up at Johnny Marshall's. And Johnny Marshall flowed it, and he sort of got us originally set up, and then the final sort of steps Trevor Stanley helped us with, and got it all up and running. And sort of Trevor's, even now, me and him good mates, and we chat over the phone and chat about what to do with it. And obviously now he's back racing again. He's got his own setup now. But yeah, it's been the last 5 years with Trevor and Glenn and that doing the boat's been really good.
Obviously, you're not the only person that's doing this. How many people are on your crew giving you a hand on race days?
We've normally got anywhere from 3 to 5, just depending on who's available. But Trent from the ex-Ferntree Gallimard Power fellow, Trent's generally there. Cam's there. Tim and Dave can come whether they can, and my son McAllister will come, and obviously my wife sometimes comes if she wants to. But yeah, she's been coming a bit more recently than earlier days. She wouldn't really like watching me earlier days. Got a bit scared.
To take these anywhere in the country, it's a big sort of thing, a big effort that goes into it. Obviously, there's got to be a couple of sponsors that are helping you out along the way.
Oh, not really, but there's a few blokes that help me, like Rob and Gary. I don't even know if I take the boat there, I just know they look after me, they don't get stuck into me, so they've always been good. Obviously Glenn Wells with the engines, I still pay him to do them all, but he's not getting into me, he's doing stuff and he'll come and help me. And people like Trevor Stanley, like I can speak to him on the phone, he'll always pick up the phone, I'll have a chat with him. So even though they're not full sponsors, they're helping me along the way with everything that's going on. So, and obviously all my crew, Tim from Eastern Marine helps me, they'll service the boat and check the boat, every season. Glenn pulls the engine down every season. So they're the blokes that help me along the way. Sponsorship, we don't really chase it at the moment. I mean, when I had the cell fitted, Maury Rowe and a mate of mine, Mick Taylor, paid to have the cell fitted, which that was the biggest sponsorship we've ever got, which was great, because at the time I was building a house and wasn't going to go back and race because I didn't have the money. So Maury Rowe and Mick Taylor pretty well put the cell in for me, which was great.
That is so nice just to step up and hear that sort of thing. A lot of people in the background helping you out.
Yeah, everybody puts in. And, we've got a good crew at the moment. Everyone loves going. So yeah, it's good fun.
The biggest part about this sport is obviously family, so taking the wife and the kids away, it's a big family sort of thing just to see Dad going around. What's the chances of the young bloke getting into the boat?
Well, after watching me drive it, he said I'm stupid. So he goes, there's no way I'd ever drive that. He goes, he hasn't. Well, he tells me he hasn't got the balls. So yeah, and I said to him, well, do you want to race 105? So, and even then he said, oh no, he's happy watching.
Just happy to sit on the base.
That's it, happy to be a part of the crew.
That's it. Over the last year, it's been pretty full on with a few people. Do you want to reminisce about your racing from the last year or so?
We've had our ups and downs with it. Obviously, we've won some good races and we've missed out on some good races. We had won the big race up at Sydney, which is that Ferga race, which was great to go out and win that for the first time. Went to Windsor and won most of the races at Windsor and got disqualified for going a bit wide on one of the corners, but won every race still. Then where did we go after that? We went back to Windsor again and went pretty good until the final where it stopped. Even though Troy was going to beat us, it was a shame that we stopped. Then obviously went to Berry. We actually had a good tune-up in at Berry. The thing was going quite quick at Berry and it broke a rocker. And instead of stopping like a peanut, I kept driving it and actually hurt the engine a bit more than I should have. But yeah, we got it all back together for Melton. And then obviously Melton didn't go as planned. We had a water fitting come off twice. And then obviously what the incident that happened was running into the roller on the water, and that sort of put us out at Melton. But overall we've had a reasonably good year, I suppose. We've won a lot of races, we've qualified quickest in a lot of races, just haven't won every race.
Where's the next race meeting for you going to be happening?
We'll go to the Marge Watson in Adelaide and have another crack at that. I don't know, I've had a fair few cracks at it. I think we were talking the other day, I think it's 10 years since I've won one. Probably, it could even be more. 2008, what's that? Well, that's even more. 16 years.
Yep.
16 years since I've won one. So yeah, I haven't been in every single one in 16 years, but I've been in a lot of them. And yeah, yet to win one.
It's about time we see your name back on the trophy again.
Well, I'll go and have another go. So yeah, so we'll go back there and have a go there, then maybe head up to Dargle in the winter. Dargle might be a little bit hard because we'll be overseas the week before, but if everything goes well, the boys will just take the boat to Dargle and I'll fly in and head to Dargle. But yeah, at the moment, it's just one race meeting at a time. So
you by the sounds of things, you obviously like the river tracks over the lake tracks?
Yeah, I mean obviously Yarrawonga and that, if the conditions are good, there's nothing wrong with Yarra. But yeah, even Melton, I mean Melton's still, even though it's not a river, the conditions there aren't too bad. But yeah, technically the boat designed probably more for as a river boat than it is a lake boat. But yeah, Dargle and Windsor are great tracks. Even Adelaide's not a bad track. I mean that's not really a river, I don't know, I suppose it is a river, but the boat can pretty well handle any conditions. I mean, I can take it to Melton and run fast at Melton, I can take it to Dargle and run fast at Dargle, and I mean, we don't really change the gears or change anything. The setup stays much the same, it doesn't matter what track we take it to, we'll leave the same setup in it, we might just change the tune up slightly, and we may lean on the tune a little bit more on some racetracks than others.
So that's the major difference in the boat from racetrack to racetrack for you, is just basically in the tune?
That's it. Yeah, look, and if you get there and you're right on the tune straight off the money, that's great, but more than likely you've got to work on the tune a little bit, but you don't have to lean on them in every racetrack. I mean, you don't have to be doing 150 mile an hour every time you take it out either. So yeah, sometimes it's better if you're going quicker, other times you don't need to be going 150. So yeah, sometimes we're conserving the engine. Yeah.
Who was the person that actually named the Unleashed boat?
I did originally. I can't really think where I got it from, but I had a bull terrier that was a bit of a mad dog, and I don't know whether it came from him. He was a mad dog, and the dog that's on the side of the boat technically is my old dog, and it was just somehow it came into my head. And I thought, oh, that's a great name for the boat. So yeah, that was originally started with after I brought True Spirit and made the original one Unleashed, and that one became Unleashed as well. So yeah, the names, I think it's a good name for the boat.
Brett, going back to when you were running at Raymond Terrace, obviously there's noise restrictions up there. You're not allowed to run open pipes. Running open pipes and extractors, what's the difference?
Obviously you got a lot more back pressure with the extractors and the zoomies. The zoomies obviously they're straight out. We didn't really change the tune up a lot with Raymond Terrace. We took one tooth off the pulley and left the fuel the way it was so that it would run a little bit rich just to play on the safe side. The numbers weren't too bad. It still ran reasonably good numbers at Raymond Terrace straight off the bat. And I know from memory up there the air was not great. I think it was high altitude, and it was the humidity was right up. So the boat still went all right with the zoomies, with the extractors on. I prefer to have the zoomies on. Obviously the boat makes a bit more power. And obviously if we run them all the time with the zoomies, you know where the boat's at, where if you've got to go and put the extractors on, you sort of second guessing your tune up and everything then. And we're leaning on the engine a little bit, obviously, so if you go out of the tune or you go out of your window a little bit, you're a bit worried. So that's why we prefer to run the zoomies, because we've always got them on. But yeah, look, we put them on for Raymond Terrace and they work fine. We didn't have any issues up there apart from breaking the blower belt on one of the corners, which
Obviously, like people watching this can't really see, but there's a engine sitting right next to us with a few different blower belts, and obviously you've heard a couple of blower belts before. You've snapped a couple. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those?
yeah, well generally, well it can be, well obviously the Whipples, they're running pretty heavy rotors in them, like they've got big rotors in them, and obviously they're spinning a lot quicker, or we're spinning ours a lot quicker than we spun the Roots blower. Obviously when you go to brake and the engine's braking, obviously the blower still wants to keep spinning over. I mean, you can ask Chris, he broke a few, but in reality we brake and they'll strip like that. They'll strip the teeth off of them and pull the teeth off of them, but it can be a number of things, whether the belts are fatigued, if they're too tight or they're too loose, can break them. Like we put a new one at Raymond Terrace and broke it straight away. Well, not a new belt, but we put a different pulley on and broke the belt the next race, and we were all questioning whether it was the right tension. So if they're too loose, they'll break the belts. If they're too tight, the belts, they'll break as well. So, and look, we're running 14mm Kevlar belts and that, but we've tried a rubber one recently, which was good. Didn't seem to have any issues. I mean, I broke that at Berry, but it didn't really break for any reason, that I kept driving a boat, and the vibration in the engine actually broke the belt. So we may end up chasing another rubber belt up. But yeah, they've been good. Technically, obviously, if you're spinning the blower a lot faster than we were, there's always issues, but it's like anything. The more you lean on stuff, the more chance things are going to get going wrong. But we're happy to take the gamble and, try to run out the front with a little bit more stress on everything.
Running a boat at this calibre, what sort of fuel consumption are you getting per race?
Normally somewhere around 60 to 70 litres, depending on the size of the track. We ran qualifying for the EC Griffith Cup a few years back, and the tank holds 100 litres, and that was 4 laps, and we came back in and the tank was dead empty on 4 laps. So it's using roughly maybe 20 odd litres a lap, maybe somewhere around that, plus your warm up and your milling sort of. So realistically it's probably use 20 litres a lap. What's a lap? Maybe
depending on the course, it can be
1600 metres.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's heavy on the fuel, but we're running ours a little bit rich on the fuel. We're not running ours lean, but in saying that, obviously the only way you can make power is to burn some fuel, and that's the best way to make power. If you're not burning the fuel, you're not making the power.
Make the boat always nice and fuel efficient is probably a good way to do it, but to make sure longevity of the engine, you've got to look after it, and that's coming down to your fuel setup.
Yeah.
And especially in your tune.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, we run a pretty conservative tune up, even though we're putting a bit of boost in on the pyros and that. We're running reasonably conservative to try to keep the engine happy. And I mean, the engine seems like it's happy most of the time. Obviously, every now and then, stuff goes wrong.
Going back in history a little bit, when you first started racing, reliability of some of these blown engines wasn't as what it is today. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean the original engine that Stewie Thomas and Mark Lewins put together, the first season we didn't do a lot of races. I know the second season I think we ran like 56 races and didn't stop once. And I think even the second year we ran like 50 odd races and never stopped once. I mean I got hosed down, that would stop the boat, but in reality the mechanical side of it, what you got to remember, when everything's brand new, you got a lot more longevity out of them. I mean, the engine that I've got in the boat now is about 15 years old. And I mean, we keep the maintenance up to it, but in saying that, some of the parts aren't brand new anymore, obviously. So the chance of breaking them is obviously higher than it is on having brand new gear.
That's completely correct on that one.
So, yeah.
Running different style of blocks, obviously there's cast iron and aluminium. Your preference between the two?
Obviously, for sealing the rings and all that sort of stuff, obviously the steel engines are better. With the aluminium engines, obviously they get a little bit more blow-by. They get the rings and the pistons don't seal anywhere near as good as they do in the steel blocks, but the aluminium block's 60 kilos lighter, and we're putting, I don't know, maybe 1800 horsepower into that aluminium one of ours. I mean, generally they only break if something's wrong, so they won't break if everything's, if the motors are happy, they won't break. Something's got to be wrong with them to break. So I'm happy running the aluminium engine. The steel one that's sitting next to me, got big cheap heads on it, and that sooner or later we'll put that in.
Looking forward to seeing that one run. It's going to be good. I do notice with some of the bad boats these days, some are running a wing and some don't want to run a wing. I've seen you run both styles. So can you tell us what's the difference between the two?
Well, we originally brought the wing we've got from the chassis shop in America, and they had data on them. So they said, at this angle of attack, it'll push down 200 pounds or 300 pounds. So we just set ours up to push down about 200 pounds of downforce, and thought, well, that'll sort of settle the back of the boat. I mean, in reality, we've run with and without it, and it's hard to tell the difference, but in reality, if you've got 200 pounds of force on the back of the boat, it's going to settle it a little bit, and obviously they look better with a wing. So, yeah, the wings are good. I mean, I've had one just recently made by the fella out at Epping, Brenton, is it? What's his surname?
Walsh.
Brenton Walsh, yeah. So yeah, he's built me the last one, and that seems to be going along all right.
Yep.
So yeah, mine's had a bit of a hard time behind the boat, so I've had a couple of them break. But yeah, in saying that, the boat sort of runs good with or without it.
Brett, looking in the workshop, you've got two different blowers sitting in here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those for us?
Well, originally, like most people, we ran a Roots blower, which is that's a Hampton, which is only it's a 2-blade rotor in that, non-Teflon. But what we found when you want to start spinning them harder and making a bit more boost, the intake temperature started to climb, and technically they wouldn't make any more power. So we decided, after getting hold of a Whipple from Lindsay Johnson, that would put that on. And obviously it brings down the intake temperature, which makes more power, and you can spin them a bit faster. Being a screw blower, they'll still keep making power compared to the other ones. So the difference between having a Roots blower on and the screw blower, for us, we probably made 8 mile an hour. So on the right days, I mean, most of the days might only make 3 or 4 mile an hour, but top speed with a Roots blower was like 143, where we've done 150 with a Whipple.
It sounds like they're a far more efficient type of blower setup. Going with that one, have you ever found the limit of this hull?
Yeah, well, if you put a good tune in them, if you've got the tune on the money and you're putting 30 odd pounds or 35 pounds of boost in them, you can have the boat where it's very flighty, and you can feel that you don't want to have a lot more power in that boat because they're running a little bit on the edge, yes, and no different to the little one. And that's why we went to the bigger boat. Even with the 480 in the little boat, a couple of times we found a limit with the power of that. If you put a really good tune in it, the thing was running well, the boat could climb out the water and start propeller walking across the top of the water. And that was the idea for us to go to the bigger boat, was to put a bit more power into it and try to chase a bit more speed. And that's how we ended up with a 21-foot boat. But in saying that, put the cell on, then you can actually pedal them a bit harder and you can chase the speed even more.
Brett, you've been in the sport such a long time. Obviously, you're a bit of an icon with a few people. Have you ever mentored anyone?
I've given a few of the boys a couple of tips on how to drive. Whether they take them on board or not, it's up to them. Nathan Barrow gave him a few hinters, and same as Clayton Marks, sort of told him a couple of little things that might help him along the way. So, but yeah, I haven't sat down and given anybody a full-blown description of how I think you should drive the boat, no, but I've given them a few tips.
To drive this beast around and actually to manhandle it, it's got to take a little bit of strain on yourself, physically and mentally. Do you want to tell us a little bit of your fitness regime?
I'm not like a fitness man. I don't go and run or do anything, but I physically work. Like I'm a plumber, so I work every day physically, so I keep myself in reasonably good nick just from working 10 or 12 hours a day. Recently I've just started to watch a bit more of what I eat and what I drink, maybe not too many beers. I used to sort of not drink 2 weeks coming up to a race meeting, no beer for 2 weeks, and try to, get myself in a little bit better nick. Recently I've been doing a little bit of training, obviously because I'm starting to get a bit older, just to try to keep on top of things. Obviously at 58 you're not at your physical peak, but I mean we're still going along all right. So yeah, obviously as you get older you're trying to do things to make sure that you're still getting a boat and you're feeling comfortable, and the races last a minute and 30 seconds. You don't have to be super fit, but mentally you've got to be switched on still. Everything in your mind's got to be telling you the right things, and obviously you still got to drive them pretty hard for a minute and a half. So yeah, you've got to be reasonably fit, but you don't have to be super fit.
Going over the journey, couple of favourite racetracks around the country?
Dargle would be the favourite. Always loved Dargle. Sort of dragged me into powerboat racing when I went up there to watch it. Thought, oh, I've got to do this, and I just remember driving over the hill and looking down the valley and thought, oh, there it is, Dargle. And they had a lot of good boats there when I went there, so that'd probably be my favourite one. But there's no tracks that are my unfavourite, because when we go to Adelaide and generally run pretty well there. I mean, even though I haven't won any Marge Watsons there, we've won a couple of Dawn Gold Cups, and we've always been competitive there. Melton, we've always gone all right, even though I haven't won a lot of Melton Gold Cups or anything, but there's nothing wrong with the track there. Windsor, we've got a great record at Windsor. I mean, for years we went up there and were unbeaten for a long time. Even recently went up there and, won nearly every race. I mean, very few times. And I mean, technically, does Windsor suit the big boat or not? Who knows? But we go to Windsor and we don't seem to have any problem getting around Windsor pretty quick. The lake races, or the lakes, probably not as good. I mean, there's a good racetrack in Tassie down at Granton. I mean, there's a racetrack in the middle of town at Devonport's. Probably not the best track, but look, these boats can handle most conditions, but technically I think they're more of a river boat. But you can drive them pretty hard on the lakes, but I prefer the river racing to the lake racing. So yeah, Dargle, probably my favourite track. Windsor, probably my next favourite, and yeah, they're all pretty good. I don't mind going anywhere.
Fantastic sort of stuff. Brett, thank you so much for having us in the shed with you, and a little bit of information that's been coming out of you has been absolutely informative for everyone watching at home. Thank you once again. We're looking forward to you coming across to Adelaide, especially to see if we can see you holding the Marge Watson this year. But
come and have another go.
We're looking forward to seeing it happening, and seeing your name engraved in another couple of trophies coming up very shortly.
All right,
Brett, thanks very much.
All right, thanks, Scott.
There you go.
Yeah.